Nigerian athletes harvest more gold medals as Commonwealth Games come to a close.
President Buhari congratulates Team Nigeria over exploits at the Commonwealth Games.
Killings in Southeast are sad and condemnable, says the president.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss internal party wrangling at the 2023 general elections.
Political party primaries, that is, have been concluded, and the presidential candidates have made their choices of running mates and submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) in good time ahead of the 2023 general elections.
But certainly the dust is yet to settle, with so many of the controversies trailing the political party primaries and the choices of running mates, such that the feeling of disaffection is threatening to tear some of the political parties apart and blur their chances in the forthcoming elections.
And the major political parties, that is the PDP and the APC, have been in the eye of the storm as the aftermath of the primaries have been fraught with accusations and counter-accusations of betrayal, lack of level playing field for contestants, monetization of the primaries, and lack of internal democracy during the primaries, as alleged by aggrieved members, some of whom have resorted to litigation to vent their grievances.
Now, all of these have led to threats of mass defection and resignation by disaffected members of the political parties, and why some party members have made good their threat. In the APC, for instance, President Muhammadu Buhari has had to intervene to stop the defection of no fewer than 22 senators to the opposition PDP, which would have made the APC an opposition in the Senate if the planned defection had occurred.
Yes, and again, the APC announced a Muslim ticket for the 2023 presidential race. It has been struggling to pacify a lot of party stalwarts who are aggrieved by the choice and are leaving for threatening to leave the party.
While the PDP is equally not spared of controversy, trailing its presidential primaries and choice of running mate, and this has led to acrimony between the party's presidential standard bearer, Atiku Abubakar, and Governor Nyesom Wike, who also contested the primaries but came second. And that was after the dramatic withdrawal of Aminu Tambuwal, governor of Sokoto State, from the presidential race. Now, the crisis in the PDP escalated after Atiku Abubakar picked Ifeanyi Okowa, who is governor of Delta State, as his running mate for the 2023 presidential election.
And so across party lines, there have been a lot of fence mending, meetings and activities to pacify aggrieved members towards amicable resolution of their grievances ahead of the 2023 general elections. Both the PDP and the APC have constituted reconciliation committees to reconcile warring factions, not only at the national level, but also at the state levels.
Of course, this has become necessary because other political parties are waiting, as it were, to harvest from the strife and disaffection within the major political parties. Now, on their part, the major political parties are not willing to leave anything to chance as they make haste to attempt to put their house in order. Otherwise, as the saying goes, a house divided against itself certainly would be like a pack of cards.
Exactly. And what are the intrigues surrounding the internal party wranglings? What are the mechanisms in place for conflict resolution? And what are the possible implications ahead of the 2023 general election. These are some of the issues we will talk up with our panel of guests on Good Morning Nigeria today. Kinsley, when we hear about the reconciliation and the pacification of aggrieved members, it's sometimes a laughable matter. Why? Because what is in the conversation of this pacification is just to promise you that when we win, you will get what Nigerians now know today as juicy positions. I've never had that, in other climes, to say, look, if you are going to pacify me, okay, I'm going to be the Minister of Petroleum, for instance, or health or works and stuff like that. So it's a question of trying to share positions. I mean, if they come to power, that should be the meat of whatever is discussed in any pacification, process, in the parties in Nigeria.
Well, obviously, yeah, that's one of the issues. But more important for the political parties where you have internal dissension is to be sure that they get into the elections with a united front. We have seen how dissatisfaction amongst critical stakeholders in political parties. Such disaffection has sometimes led to a front-running party losing an election in a state. But at the national level, the stakes are much higher. And obviously, we'll see how things go. We'll see a number of persons who contested in the primaries have been complaining. In the APC, for instance, it's you heard what Rotimi Amechi said. He said openly that those persons who were bribed in the course of the primaries are now full of regrets. What we call the buyer's remorse, or if you like, a seller's remorse, because they sold their voting rights.
Exactly. And as far as the political space is concerned, those individuals who sold their votes during the primaries, in fact, even in their localities, are seen as betrayers.
No question about that. Yeah, but these are issues that our guests, as you mentioned, will be taking a look at as we consider that. It's still about 6 months ahead of the elections, but some of this crisis can actually snowball. And when they do, they could create problems for the political parties.
All right. I am Kieran Umayo. Welcome to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join Kieran to also welcome you to the program. It's a slightly wet morning here in the nation's capital, a lot of drizzle this morning, and we're live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, our complementary segments will come along, namely newspaper review and business. For now,
well, thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today on the network service of the NTA. Next for us now is business news.
Economic analyst says the Nigerian arts industry has matured through the years, that many works done by artists in the country are exhibited in various parts of the world, including London, Paris, Rome, New York, and Berlin, which are generally regarded as artistic cities of the world. The Art Basel and UBS Global Art Market Report 2022 puts the size of the global market at $65.1 billion. It is believed that the industry can help to shore up Nigerians' revenue if given the required attention by the government. Observers are of the opinion that Nigerians are very creative and can make something out of nothing, but many fall by the wayside due to lack of patronage and support. With business news, Alika Okwanachi, Arua.
thank you very much, Alika. Let's go over now to our newspaper review segment.
Bayo Tebi has just joined us. He's our newspaper reviewer, as always. Bayo, good morning.
Thank you,
and
Kieran.
welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
Well, Bayo, good to see you.
Good morning, Kingsley.
It's a wonderful morning here for us. The nation's capital, as I said, is slightly wet. We had some drizzle, but over the weekend, Team Nigeria made everyone proud with their haul of medals. And let's begin by taking a look, therefore, at the window page of the leadership newspaper. And the lead story for the leadership newspaper is smack on the Commonwealth Games. The kicker is, as Commonwealth Games end, Nigeria's athletes bring incredible joy to a nation in distress. That's the lead story. Can we take a look at that lead story with the headline right there? There you can see the number of riders there. Team Nigeria breaks jinx, wins elusive women's 4x100 meters relay gold. Amuson makes history, wins 100 meters hurdle title, and says it's mentally challenging and nerve-wracking. Now, you see the quartet, 4x100, Nigerian female athletes who won the gold yesterday. Nefiok is right there, Ofili, Amuson and Amuson, Ofili, Chukuma, and Nwokocha. Those are the female athletes that gave us the gold yesterday. And just to see their bio data is right there against their individual names. You see when they were born. They are the children you refer to these days as millennials. That's the millennials, those who arrived from 1990 right up to the present age. Before the millennials, the last popular age grade were the baby boomers, who were those from 1946 to 1964. Well, congratulations to them. The bunt, as the saying goes, the tracks in Birmingham to bring in the Hall of Medals. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about that. Also, on the front page, S.A. Brumer, long jumper, wins gold. And Nigerians react. We are proud of these achievements, and the memories will linger with the nation forever. And for me, this is a special moment and a fitting parting gift, being my last Commonwealth Games as head of state. That's according to President Muhammadu Buhari. Stand up for the champions. Thank you for doing Nigeria proud, and congratulations to all Nigerian athletes at the Commonwealth Games. That's according to the Minister of Sports. Now, also there on the front page, politics is inevitable. Atiku and Wike reconciliation will not fail. That's according to Jerry Ghana. Nigeria's fiscal pressure is imploding. That story is attributed to the Nigeria Economic Summit Group and ESG. All right, Kirian, let's check out our stories.
All right, it's time for us to turn to the Nation newspaper. Let's begin with the headlines above the name flag of the newspaper. NCDC, Nigeria recorded 24 cases of monkeypox in 1 week. It's on page 4. Now, Amusan, Brumer break Commonwealth records. Of course, Kingsley has given us details of that on leadership newspaper. That's on page 31. Jai's Bank raked 2.5 billion naira profit in 6 months. It's on page 13. Omana demands end to oil theft in Niger State. The details captured on page 2 of the Nation. But now below the name flag, subsidy FAC demands petrol consumption records from NNPC. It's on page 4. Pantami becomes first African Fellow of Chartered Institute of Information Security. The story is on page 8. NDLEA arrests 90-year-old suspected bandit drug supplier at Lagos Airport. The story is on page 3. Now, the lead story, of course, is politics. Wike's camp slams Atiku over divide and rule in PDP. With 4 riders, Governor tightens hold on Rivers chapter. We are resolving rift, says Jibrin. How generals influenced Okowa's choice. Omahe, power should shift to the south. Gist of all that on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. Air Force kills terrorist leader. 27 insurgents neutralized. For further on that, you go to page 4 of the Nation newspaper. At the bottom of the front page of the Nation, Gombe youths drum up support for their political principles. Well, of course, it's on page 3. You can read on all of that. I didn't want to mention names because it will amount to promotion of a particular candidate. Read all of that in the Nation. Let's bring in Bayo now for further analysis.
Let me start with the one you just finished now, the operations of the Nigerian Air Force, and we will end with the Commonwealth Games, which is very, very good news. But the air component of the operation, Harder in Daji, carried out interdictions operations across some states in Kaduna, Niger, and Katsina states, and they targeted terrorist camp and enclave. And the indications are that terrorists, including notorious commander who is known as Abdulkadir Lawal, otherwise known as Abdulkadir Boss, was neutralized. Abdulkadir Boss was said to be the Boko Haram member who is based in the Marina area of Safana local government area, and he's been terrifying people in the Katsina axis. In another operation by the air interdiction, the air operation also attacked locations in Mandara Hills in Goza local government area. There again, there were intelligence indicated that terrorists were about to have a meeting, and in the morning raid, over 20 of them who were at the meeting were also neutralized. This time, they included a leader of an ISWAP group who was identified as Alaji Modu, otherwise known as Bembem. The spokesman for the Air Force, Commodore Gapweb, has indicated that yes, the operations are going on, and it may be recalled that last week, the Chief of Air Staff kicked off the operation Show No Mercy as part of the operation.
But the question I want to ask, sorry, what are these as it were, whether they're being complemented, by ground personnel or ground soldiers or foot soldiers, if you like, because if you bomb a particular area, yes, you succeed in scattering them, perhaps get some neutralized, but some will also escape. And for you to say, be sure of capturing a particular area of operation of these men, you need to also have people on ground.
Yes. They in fact confirmed that ground troops who are also involved in the mop-up operation confirmed the success of the air interdiction and the neutralization of many of the terrorists. But for now, they have been able to isolate certain forests where the terrorists are located, and this include Jambirini, Kusugu, Kauru, Kwaki,
Bayo,
and Ukwambo.
I'm sorry to again leap in here like Kirian did. Good news from the Nigerian Air Force, good news from the Nigerian military, and we hope that more pressure will be put on the bandits, on terrorists, and kidnappers wherever they are, smoke them out from their hideouts, and that goes on well. But there is another location of critical concern now, which is Kogi State. Ajaokuta, I'm sure we all read the story over the weekend of what happened. Ajaokuta, previously there was an incident, and the state government issued a warning, if you may, read the Riot Act to traditional rulers to say if there was any incident of kidnapping or insecurity, the traditional rulers will be held accountable. Now, a coastal bus conveying workers from a ceramic factory somewhere around Ajaokuta was attacked by bandits or kidnappers or whoever they are. 2 policemen were killed, 2 Indians were killed, and a number of the expatriate staff of that ceramic company were also abducted. And there is no information as at this morning, at least up to this morning when I went through the various stories, no information as to their whereabouts. Again, this is a location for concern, because if you remember, years past there were allegations of sleeper cells for terrorists in Kogi, and since the assault on Kuje prison and the escape of a number of the detainees or persons who were being held in custody in that jail, we've had an escalation of the crisis. What is happening? Some of those parts of Kogi can be pretty lonely, and Kogi, of course, is the rocky terrain. Some of the locations are rocky. Some of the roads are not so good. It's an area of focus. It's an area of attention that calls for immediate because Kogi is a junction state.
Yes.
I think you have about 10 or 10 states.
10 states of the federation.
Yes.
And again, the Right Act, read by the governor of the state, for me, may not necessarily be enough or effective, because for you to say you hold a traditional ruler responsible, what does he have? I know under normal circumstances, he's in charge of his community. All right, but then he cannot be in charge of criminal elements, who are operating in his territory, and he doesn't have the wherewithal in terms of the apparatus, to checkmate any criminals around here. So holding them responsible, I don't know how far that can go.
Actually, like Kingsley pointed out, some of the persons who escaped from Kuje prison were actually from that axis. Originally, they were arrested from operation from that axis. And so now that they are let loose, I think they've gone back to those their axis, and they are probably the ones increasing the anxieties in those areas.
Let me respond very quickly to what Kyria said. I think holding the traditional rulers accountable has more to do with gathering and relaying credible information that may then become sources of intelligence for the security agencies. If we say, for instance, that bandits or kidnappers are camped out in the forest, those forests are under the governance, if you may, of traditional rulers. And to say that, look, there are people in your forest, it's not as if you are a criminal element and then the traditional ruler must know you. There are some bad people in your community whom you would know anyway, but if there are persons who are camped out in your location and your I don't want to use the word subjects, but your citizens see them, they ought to be able to report back. And it is not just the traditional ruler himself. The traditional ruler has a governance structure to say he has chiefs, he has other persons who are below him to say, look, pass word down or pass it up whenever you get such information. But Kogi is quite worrisome.
Yes, it's worrisome, and Kogi has a lot of forest area, which initially the Kogi state government had put together a security outfit, which included local hunters, which were also working with the local vigilante groups and the police, and they had for a long time been able to keep all these criminals at bay. But of recent, I think this accidency in their operations is worrying, and something has to be done about it. The other one is the report about the arrest of drug dealers. The one that is very strange and very fascinating is the importation of 3 drums of methamphetamine, otherwise known as Mpurumiri, that had been imported in 3 drums. And it traveled all the way in a bus, Ujuelegba registered bus, and it was not detected until a stop and search operation along Umuahia Akwa Ibom Road before it was found out. And who was behind it? A pastor, Aniete Ofyong, was found to be behind it. And he had actually imported it, intending to take it across the border into Cameroon. The other one is the report Kyria read. A 90-year-old retired soldier was found with cannabis, and when they found out, he is actually the kingpin who is supplying bandits such illicit drugs in that is increasing.
I don't know how much diplomacy we also employ in our drug war. Now we keep hearing about importation of meth, as this is called, or other forms of psychotropic substances. Where is the port of origin? Where is the country of origin? Have we engaged these countries? Are those substances legal where they are? I haven't perused the details of the UN Convention on hard drugs, but I imagine that it ought to be a point of diplomatic engagement. If these things are coming from Asia, which countries are they coming from in Asia? We remember the United States on its own had taken some drastic measures against countries of origin of hard drugs. So those are the kind of things that we shouldn't just be hearing, oh, the drugs have arrived, oh, the drugs have arrived.
They even take the war to those countries. America will take the fight to those countries where those drugs are manufactured. So what Kingsley is talking about is like closing down the network of operation.
The source of the drug.
It's a network.
Most of the drug peddlers that are arrested at our airports, originally, most of the time, originate from South America. I don't want to name countries. They come there through Ethiopian Airlines, and they are arrested at the point of entry in Nigeria. So that's a location for where it
hide countries where
you don't have to hide
they have
where they are coming from.
No, the Colombia and the rest of them, and even Nicaragua, all those belts, in the Southern America, that are the kingpins in the business. And
now, that said, let's come to the Commonwealth.
Yes,
we have been warned that we're out of time. So I imagine there will be a lot of celebration around the performance of our athletes.
Yes.
And we'll have the opportunity then of drilling down into the issues and lessons to learn from the superlative performance of the athletes.
Let me ask Bayo this secondly. Let me ask you this. Why is it that athletes don't perform this well when it comes to Olympic Games, for instance?
Well, for this particular competition, there was a specific operation for athletes. They converged at Benin, and there was a strict observation of a time limit. If you didn't qualify for that time, you will not be allowed to participate. And that strictness and making sure that those who met the international standard went accounted for the quality of performance. Nigeria placed on the medal table now. We're about 9th or out of the 37 nations that were on the tables. And as at the last count, we had 11 gold medals, mostly won by in the women events.
I'm just saying that when we get to the world, the world stage, like Olympic Games, we will sometimes come back with only silver or bronze. That case maybe.
And that is what.
I understand what you are saying. Yeah, the Commonwealth is for members of the Commonwealth.
Favour Ofili said. He said we have announced our arrival. And this is to say that Nigeria is ready to take on anybody in the world.
Okay, well, again, that's good. We had said that we're going to make this brief, but the truth is that Nigeria is no longer a stranger to winning medals at the Olympics, Kieran. I mean, you remember we won that in boxing. We won it. I agree. It's not in athletics. We have also won it. We won a gold medal. Long jump, we won a gold medal 4x4. Sunday Bada, again, we earlier won a silver, but the US team that won the gold suffered a doping allegation, suffered from a doping allegation and conviction, and therefore they lost the gold medal. That was at the Sydney Olympics of year 2000. And then, of course, let's not forget what happened in Atlanta in 1996.
I agree. I can do better.
We can certainly. Just there's no question about it. We keep improving. Let's just not recede from what we have done. I imagine that Mary Oyade will be all smiles because this is one of the things she's been working hard at. I would know that she's one of Nigeria's most decorated athletes. Bayo, big thanks for being around.
Thank you for having me.
It's Good Morning Nigeria. We're live on the network service of the NTA. We take a short break now. When we return, pardon us, of course, sometimes when we are discussing issues in our newspaper review segment, it just gets so interesting that we'll keep going on and on. When we return, this time we'll be looking at the ruffle within the political parties after their party primaries ahead of the 2023 general elections.
All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria up to this moment. And as a prompt for our conversation, which is on internal party wranglings and the 2023 general elections, here is a background report put together by our correspondent, Kunle Adeye.
The aftermath of political parties' primaries in Nigeria is always characterized by internal wranglings and disaffection. Lack of internal democracy and total disregard for party constitution are the excuses mostly advanced by the complainants. Arising from the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022, there is sufficient time between the conduct of party primaries and the general elections for these wranglings to be addressed. With the approval of different modes of party primaries, the direct, indirect, and consensus approach, the post-primary atmosphere in some political parties is still topsy-turvy as aggrieved members complain of non-compliance with Electoral Act, monetization of the process, unlawful substitution of candidates' name, and many more grievances. Consequently, these have resulted in litigations pending before various courts of competent jurisdiction, resignation of some members from political parties, and mass defections to other political parties. To prevent further escalation, political parties have set up reconciliatory committees to appeal to aggrieved members and move to the next phase of the road to 2023 general elections that is the campaigns which will get underway in September. Will there be a time when politicians will accept the outcome of party primaries without opting for litigation and defection? Is there a missing link in the conduct of party primaries? Or does the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) still need to infuse extra guidelines to the Electoral Act? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will give detailed analysis in a moment.
Yeah, to discuss the issue with us here in the Abuja studios, we have two regular guests as well as from our Benin Network Center. With us in the studios here, let's welcome Engineer Yabagi Yusuf Sani. Engineer Sani is the National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. He's also the National Chairman of the Action Democratic Party, ADP, and equally the presidential candidate of the Action Democratic Party. You're wearing three hats, but I'm seeing only one on your head. Chairman, it's our pleasure to have you again.
It's a pleasure, Kinsley. Thank you for having me.
All right. Also here with us, as I said, another familiar face, Dr. Gali Sherif Ibrahim is an associate professor and head of Department Political Science and International Relations at the University of Abuja. Doc, we're glad to see you again.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria. And joining us from our Benin studio is Dr. Osawaru Okunzua, a public affairs analyst. We're glad to have you with us this morning on our show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here too.
All right, Doc, an engineer, we're glad to have you join us. Let's begin with the chairman of IPAC, because the Party Advisory Council embraces all the political parties. Some persons will argue that, what we are seeing now in terms of the litigation, threats, and the wrangling in some of the political parties after the primaries, and some of those things are not unexpected. Well, we would say not unexpected in the Fourth Republic. Things were not always like this. And what's happening?
Well, thank you, Kinsley. You must understand that the journey into democracy in this country is gathering a lot of momentum, and meaning that more and more people are becoming more interested in what is happening, and the stakes are getting higher by the day. And unfortunately, this is against the background of conditions that are not favorable for what one can call a fair situation for the growth of democracy, the way we want it to be. Aspiration of the country to have a democracy that will actually represent the interests of the people and for the people. What you find here is the situation where money speaks, and the situation is not far-fetched. You talk about the primaries. The primaries are conducted by the politicians. Nobody gives money to the political parties to conduct primaries except politicians. The members themselves do not pay the dues that political parties would have used to ensure that the rules and regulations are maintained, because the saying is that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So one would have expected a situation where either the INEC conducts even the primaries, because if primaries are so important to the journey into forming a government, people to come out to represent their parties, if it's so important, then just like the government has taken the responsibility to fund general elections, the primaries are even not as big in terms of the size, in terms of what it takes, for them to do it. Should have, even if you are not going to support political parties in other activities, identifying that primaries are key, in fact, is the beginning of the process, then something should have been done, in ensuring that going forward, you have what will represent, the interest of the people. So I think that's one aspect of it. That's why Those who have, those who you call money bags, are always, they always have their way, And of course, at the end of the day, laws are circumvented, and people now go to court to say, well, I wasn't given chance to do this, that law was not observed, this one was not observed, and you find, of course, the courts now becoming the people that will decide the political future of the country, which shouldn't be the case. So I think it has to do with funding. You can't remove funding from what is happening. Experience has shown. I mean, if you look at what emerged from most of the primaries, it's not the best that really emerges. It is he who has the ability to pay. Aside from the issue of corruption, that is compromising the delegates, even that would have been taken care of if the case is that the parties are properly funded. Like I said, at least to conduct this most important activity in forming a government.
Okay. All right. I like it when you started, with the party formation in the country and how it has led to the kind of democratic practice that we are witnessing today. But we'll leave it at that for now until we return to you. But let me get to Professor Gali Sheriff Ibrahim, who is himself a political scientist. Now, we have witnessed a poor internal party management in Nigeria since 1999, and that has led to a non-contributory posture of even many party members. This has led to paucity of funds when it comes to funds to run political parties. And of course, the consequence of this is also the fact that the primary elections are monetized. It has usually been monetized. This is a situation where the highest bidder and not the best candidate wins election. How did we get to that level in terms of the way we run our political parties in the country?
Thank you so much. The issue of this intra-party crisis conflict, arises as a result of the nature of the society in which we live in. The nature of the society in the sense that there is prevalence in terms of the spread of poverty. And the people in government have resorted into this particular political bargain that, look, we hold all the political resources, especially at the disposal of the government. And the right time for us to unleash such resources is the time when we are seeking, for the electorate to give us their votes. So therefore, by the time we make sure that people live in penury, and when we come, we provide a little offer to them, then we get their support. So this is the deliberate means and way of creating this particular synergy between the poor electorate as well as those who seek to occupy the seat of government. Then there's a part, there is disagreement among those who wield the wheels of powers within a political party. Why is this so? Once we have little disagreement, then the crisis begins. Disagreement in the sense that if you go back to 1950s, there was disagreement between Akintola and Awolowo. How did that arise? Because of the issue of making or forming an alliance. This disagreement because Akintola wanted to ally with the NPC, Northern People's Congress, while Awolowo was not on that particular page. So that created crisis. Then apart from that, there was also ideology. Once we have difference in ideology, you see the eruption of conflict within and among the party members. Because Akintola proposed what we call democratic socialism, with the action group, while this was rejected by Awolowo himself. Democratic socialism in the sense that there should be a socialist economy, meaning the means of production should be controlled by the state collectively but under a liberal democratic setting. This was actually jettisoned by Awolowo. Then there was also another issue of disagreement in terms of the struggle for supremacy. under the action group. That actually led to the passage of vote of no confidence. And later, Akintola had to leave the action group, which made him to actually venture into NNDP, which is Nigerian National Democratic Party. Then apart from this, you now also come down to PDP, for example. Such disagreement as well as internal party dictatorship, because we've had a situation in the sense that, for example, the then Bamanga Tukur, wanted to impose a candidate on the the Governors Forum, and the Governors Forum had their own candidate, and they insisted that Bamanga Tukur must resign. That created a kind of disharmony within the PDP as of then. Then another issue that the governor should actually control the party executives within their own state. Then apart from this, there was also another issue which was raised by the new PDP. What was that? That Jonathan shouldn't be allowed to contest for 2015 general elections. So these are all disagreements arising from within a political party that create divides. And when these particular divides, are not actually to be mended, then it creates jettisoning political party, cross-carpeting, and the rest of them. Then we should also remember that political party is a group of people of same interest, okay, like minds, who pursue that particular interest in order to achieve their own common goal. But one major thing we must understand is that people of the same blood who share the same DNA, they also engage in conflict. Parents will give birth to a child and conflict erupts usually between parents and children, even among siblings sometimes. So conflict is inevitable. It is rather inherent in virtually all ramifications of our lives. And that is why you discover that if we do not share same interests, even if we do, for example, we are likely to engage in conflict. I give you an example that members of the APC, PDP, ACN, Labour Party came together to form a merger prior to 2015 general elections. So these are people of divergent or variegated interests. And now they all entered into APC, for example, and their major and their primary aim was to remove PDP as of then from power. That was the primary objective, but divergent interests. So when APC succeeded in dethroning PDP from power, then this divergent and variegated interests began to manifest. Yeah. Now what do you expect? Crisis, conflict. Why? Because the lack of compatibility of interest in order to run the political party. Then apart from this, you also talk about the issue of that dictatorship which I made mention. Apart from this, there is issue of incompetence and misgovernance. Because if there is incompetence within the leadership strategy of the party, some people will ask themselves, why are we in this particular party? Because we owe the people, we have the responsibility to deliver, and there is nothing being delivered. So the fiasco, political fiasco, failure of the political party to deliver will also bring about resentment as well as a decision by some members of the political party to leave that particular political party. Then
okay, Dr. Gali Sharif, thanks for your opening salvo. Just let's pause you in the meantime and go over to our Benin Network Center, where we earlier introduced Dr. Sawara Okunzuwa. Dr. Okunzuwa, of course, this is a familiar turf for you, and as I asked the chairman of IPAC, some persons very well argue that, look, there's nothing unusual about this. It's the kind of contestation you find amongst members of a political party. But the frequency of this and the intensity of it are sources of concern to political watchers. Should we be concerned about how political parties are managed? The current crisis being a fallout, some would argue, of poor internal party management.
Yes, Nigerians should be concerned about how political parties are managed because they exist to help us aggregate the interest from different sections of the mass public, especially the voting public. But that said, the current situation in political parties, for me, I would take the view of those who believe it's not anything abnormal. If anything, we should be rejoicing over it, because the intensity we are having now is a show of interest. The alternative ordinarily would have been apathy and withdrawal. So if the atmosphere is agog and there is no violence and the people are able to thrust forward their interests and insist on them as a basis of bargaining, I think we should celebrate it, believing that our democratic process is maturing. And for all the political parties, the issues they have raised so far, let's talk about the two dominant political parties, the incumbent party, the incumbent government party, and the major opposition party. The issues that they have raised, Nigerians have actually waded into. So I think, going by what political scientists are saying all over the world now about whether some places are hard places or soft places for democracy, I think Nigeria is closer to being a soft place for democracy to thrive. Because the incumbent political party, the government, the party of the current government, is already progressed to the point of selecting a flag bearer, and other political parties too. For the party of the government, they have selected a flag bearer who is complemented his ticket by choosing a person of the same faith. That is being a lot of discussion in the country. While the major opposition party chose a person from the northern part of the country, same path as the incumbent president, and that has raised the kind of specter of regional domination or some kind of hegemony. So the debates are on. And then the third party mobilization is going on the other side, which people say is generally amorphous at the moment. So until the elections are held in 2003, that's next year, we wouldn't know what things will be like, because Nigerians are actually interested. It's a happy thing. And so far, the incidence of violence has been low. That means the political process that's supposed to be kind of continuous bargaining is on. So the political parties should be giving the rein, so long as they are acting within the limits of the law, to run their own processes. So far, I think they have kept to the timetable. So far, they have satisfied what is required of them. So whether the process is noisy or not, or is turbulent, is immaterial, for as long as they are able to fulfill their mission. So the political parties have selected their flag bearers already. Most of their tickets are already complemented. They have running mates and all that. So the problem or the challenge before the political parties now is how to adjust their strategic behavior towards the culmination of the goal they always had in mind, which is the legitimate occupation and control of Aso Rock, our seat of government, next year after the election. At least at the national level, that's the focus. So most of the jockeying you are seeing within the political parties are all attuned towards that. So for the time being, Nigerians or the voting public, we are watching. By the time the political parties will have been, the election proper comes, the choices will be made. So the process we are seeing is discernible. And some will say even sensible. There's a pattern to it. So I don't think Nigerians should be worried at all about the internal wranglings in political parties. We need the noise. We need to know what is going on, and so on and so forth. The kind of jostling, as I said a while ago. So I think our democracy on the whole too, if you go by the trend, is actually improving. Look at how INEC has set very firm limits. Look at how INEC is asserting its independence. Look at how the courts are forthcoming in making rulings and judgments, and so on. I think we should not be suing for the peace of the graveyard. The hubbub we are hearing from the political parties, for me, is a good sign that democracy is gaining more and more vitality. And what we need to be talking about is how these hubbub or policy debates or contestation will now be tethered to good governance. Well, by the time we come to the election, whether that will be a voter demand or not, we will also know. But for me, as a citizen, I'm not worried about it at all. I'm happy that the political parties, they are very, very energetic in pursuing what their goals are. Let's see what they will do in their manifestos and so on, and what the citizens will choose from. So I definitely take sides with people who say we should not be worried at all. The political parties are alive.
You, Dr. Kunzua, but let me invite your attention for a point made by the IPAC chairman, who is with us here in the studios. Yes, the political parties have conducted their primaries. Yes, the political parties now have their standard bearers, but the IPAC chairman drew our attention to what went on during those primaries. At least in some cases, there were serious allegations that probably not necessarily the best emerged. So you probably have looked at the end result. Primaries have been conducted, people have gone, but the sitting rage among some of the disaffected members of the political parties emerges from what the IPAC chairman said, namely that money spoke. What are your thoughts?
Money always speaks in politics. Even in other climes where you talk about mature democracies, doesn't money speak? To run an election, to gain an office is a project. It's going to cost money. And that is actually why we talk about advantages and disadvantages. And broadly speaking, some people even contend that democracy should not be for developing countries. I disagree. We have varieties of democracy. It is true that mass poverty is a factor that detracts from the ideal of democracy. Advantages and disadvantages are distributed. That is why you have a political party, to mobilize the requisite resources from the different sections of this party. That is actually why you have subscription. Not necessarily about money now, even the moral will to believe in the vision of a political party. Money will always play a role. And as a matter of fact, there is no pure democracy anywhere in the world. In our own case, the issue of money in form of plutocracy and so on is there. But the summative factor is whether our new president, our new governors, our new lawmakers across the country come 2023 will be subjected to the will of the people. Or that there are going to be intermediary processes that will funnel into that. So that is not peculiar to Nigeria at all. And we should not waste our time on that. Money will always confer advantages on people at every level. And we are talking about power play that the political parties are involved in. What are the methods available to them? You are either going to persuade, you are either going to induce, or you coerce. So far, if we say there's not been so much violence, coercion has been minimized, and people are trading whatever it is. If money is not taken, or money is not given, it might not be taken. And if there is no money that is going to be taken, money may not be given. So let us see it as a stage in our evolution. Down the road, when education will have improved around the country, people really know what the stakes are. People also know that when you believe in a political party, you have to subscribe to it, and the party will have independent means of financial control and so on. We begin to talk about all these issues. Money definitely confers advantages on different people, in different activities, not only the political atmosphere.
We will agree. Well, I will agree with you to a reasonable extent, but I cast doubt on the fact that money will always speak in the kind of peculiarity we have here in the country, where delegates are given dollars for them to vote for a candidate, and you say money can always play a role. Is that how it's done in other climes? Are money being given to delegates to come and vote for a candidate during election? Is that how money should be spent in politics? We know about American politics. They use a lot of money because, of course, before you even vie to be a president of America, you need to be a millionaire or have the contacts, that could, swell up your pocket for you to run an election. But it's all on logistics and things that you have to not on sharing to individuals who are going to elect a candidate that will vie for the presidency of a nation, and somebody is giving money to vote that person, whether it's capable or not capable. That is, for me and many Nigerians, is not a good practice in terms of how money should speak in politics. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. We'll come back to you because you will respond much later. We'll have other issues that will link to what I've just said. Yeah, I'm just trying to analyze your answer.
But now, Kieran, just to also throw in this, I know that Dr. Kunzwa is itching to respond. On the eve of the party primaries, on Good Morning Nigeria, we hosted a conversation on the historic duty of delegates.
Exactly.
The historic duty of delegates. Is it your conscience or your pocket?
Exactly. Okay. We're back to the studio here, and I want to engage the ADP presidential candidate, Yabagi Yusuf Sani, here now. The aftermath of a primary election actually determines the kind of government we're going to have if any of the candidates win the election. Now, from the process going on, we hear about some political machinations, character assassination, people calling themselves liars, political innuendo, and what have you. Is that a good process? Right. And when it comes to the issue of party formation and all of that, why is it that in Nigerian situation, political parties are not formed with respect to the responsibility of a member that should be contributing on a monthly basis to ensure that the party has money to run the affairs of the party, and not a situation where if an individual donates money to a party in a state and says, look, he's the person that dictates the tunes and whatever happens in that state, what should be the ideal situation?
Well, my colleague there from Benin, who was talking, I think he probably is not looking at it holistically, to the looking at the implications of what is happening. Because, okay, let's even take it as a commercialized, environment. Politics is not supposed to be commercialized, but he's saying that it could be commercialized and you still get the results. No, because even in the commercialized sectors of the economy, you find government intervening. Yes, we are practicing what you can call a capitalist system, which says, to you according to your ability. But even at that, government intervenes in helping some companies to be able to catch up and be able to compete, effectively. So meaning that there is a need for government to intervene in certain activities in the country. Not to talk about the most important activity in the country, where we recognize the fact that we are operating under an environment, like he says, that developing countries, democracy is luxury. I don't want to accept that, because developing countries must develop, isn't it? And we cannot develop in a wrong direction. Direction we have taken today, like you have said, is a wrong path to develop a democracy and develop a nation, where you find that people come and then all you need to do was to fill your pocket or fill your briefcase with dollars and then come and then buy up anybody. You could be a drug pusher, you could be a killer, you could be anything. The man does not even want to know what your name is, not to even talk about your track record. All he wants to know is how much dollars is he paying. That's what our democracy has become, plutocracy. And we cannot afford to have this. The whole world is looking up to Nigeria for leadership, and we cannot give this kind of leadership to the rest of the African continent, African countries, not talk about the whole world, that Nigeria has become a global player, in such a situation. That's why some of us are not agreeing with the belief of the government that this thing should be left on its own. This cannot be laissez-faire, situation yet, as far as political, development is concerned. We are still at the base, at the embryo stage, if you like. Look, America, over 200 years have been spent on this, and yes, they had their problems, but there has to be some kind of intervention, by the government, because this is the most serious business. If you are going to invest in small companies that wants to catch up so that they can survive, this is the biggest, responsibility of the government that we cannot just overlook, and we can't pretend to say that Nigerians can afford to run democracy. Democracy is very expensive. So also doing business is not so cheap. But government has decided, in the constitution, in the laws, setting up institutions to deliberately help, some companies that are doing some jobs. Some businesses. Also here, political parties cannot be formed and then allowed, to be run by the capital, with the capitalists of individuals that have money. That is inimical to this country, from all ramifications. That's the point I'm making. Yes, we are going on, but are we going in the right direction? No, we are not. And again, when you look at it against the background of all these dichotomies that we have in this country, such as you are talking about religion, you are talking about the kind of clothes that the man wears, you are talking about where he is coming from, you are talking about whether he's somebody that is a particular ethnic group, so all these things, government must come at the top to neutralize all these things, and how do you neutralize it? It's like he says, money speaks. Money can speak in certain areas of our democratic development, which will not be in any way adisma to a virile and then strong democracy anywhere at all in the world. So Nigeria, like I said, we must give example of what we want other African countries, to copy because they look up to us. And this is not an example to show to other countries. That is why some of us, in running these political parties and having to run, for the bar offices, we are not happy with what is happening, because we believe that today Nigeria is a country that requires hand-on, people with hand-on experience, people with track record, people that can think out of the box. Not the kind of things that we are throwing up for Nigerians to now choose from. That means we want to retrogress. It's so apparent. It's not that because I'm running, for office, that's why I'm saying this. It is so apparent that Nigeria is not being taken into the right direction yet, from the experience or the primaries that I've had, so far. If all these people making so much noise and they're abusing themselves, well, like you said, it's because the condition itself, that is the ground rules, are not observed. And EFCC, ICPC, the police themselves saw what happened in those primaries. I didn't see. They were even in the primaries, the arena themselves. And they want to tell us that nothing happened that will call them to investigate and to even cancel some of these primaries. So who is fooling who? So this is the point we are making, that we must wake up to our responsibilities as a nation. We must also wake up as individuals, that especially institutions that have been, taxpayers have been spent on them to help. If there's anywhere to fight corruption, I think this is where it is, because you are recruiting your leaders here, and you allow corruption to be endemic, to take place openly with impunity, and nothing is done, and you say you are fighting corruption. So this is why we are saying that yes, we are having a democracy which is progressing, but in the wrong direction.
All right, Engineer Yabagi, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. In brief, one of the key issues is that money speaks.
Yes.
In political development, and money speaks in a generalized form. But that what we have seen lately is that money is speaking for delegates. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You're smiling, IPAC chairman. We will come back to you. Well, of course, people say that it is what makes a child to laugh that also makes that child to cry. Exactly. And that's why you have raised the dangers inherent in what we're experiencing. I want to bring in Dr. Gali Sharif Ibrahim again. Dr. Gali Sharif, well, part of the prescription of Engineer Yabagi is that, in his opening salvo, that primaries are so crucial to the electoral process, and that the apparent lack of capacity of political parties to conduct free and fair primaries, the so-called internal party democracy issue, should warrant a situation where this is now outsourced to INEC. Are we going to have to outsource the governance of political parties to another entity that already has a major task on its hands?
Well, there are countries that actually, ask their bodies like INEC to
election management
to conduct the internal process. That this internal process you are talking about, and even if it means them paying, the INEC, if government say they can't pay, I don't know why government should not pay, because this is crucial, like you rightly said. There are countries doing it.
You said so.
No, I'm saying it. Countries are doing it. I don't know. I can't remember immediately. But like Ghana, I think,
okay, that should be a point
to conduct their internal primary.
Yes.
They do.
All right, that's fine. That's a point. That's a point. Perhaps when it's direct primaries, when it's probably too elaborate, that could be. What we are dealing with now is indirect. When it is direct and you have all members of a political party participating in it, or if it is direct and open, which means you are a member of the party, you are also not a member of the party, you can participate, that could arise. But it's a point of research interest that we can look into. Dr. Sharif.
Yes, there is not actually anything abysmal if a political party could actually source other areas of funding in order to determine the actual representatives of that particular political party. If that particular move will not actually change the outcome of the result, of the elections. Secondly, any society which relies on giving out money to electorate, you know, in order to determine the outcome of the elections, I think that society is doomed to fail politically and democratically. Why? Because if I may paraphrase Chinua Achebe, he is man of the people. He said that we are proudly African people. And our true leaders are not those who get Oxford, Cambridge, and Harvard degrees, but our true leaders are those who speak the language of the people. Language of the people in the sense that the yearnings and aspirations of the people. What are the expectations of the people? Then you try to provide that particular utility, dissatisfaction to the people. That is true leadership. You should actually be after the arrears, salaries of your own government, the people you govern, not your own. But on the contrary, our own politicians will rather get their allowances increased, and allowances of those they govern reduce. They don't care. So true leaders are those who speak and understand the language of the people they govern. So I believe that societies trying to actually monetize political processes, such societies are becoming more moribund and decadent politically. Why? Because there is not going to be any foresight and insight for development, political development, you know, economic development. As a result of what? As a result of lacking in concrete foundation of political structuration. So political management, political parties, sometimes political blunders as a result of lack of critical thought and thinking by those who manage the political parties. We come back to, you know, the ruling party, for example. I always say this, you know, the issue of masculinity and churchinity. Masculinity, churchinity combined together, and that is how we see ourselves as Nigerians. We live different creeds, you know, different religious backgrounds, but we live together. We never structured Nigeria the way we wanted, because that is how we found ourselves. We found ourselves, we are different people, different culture, different historical background, but we are meant to live together. So for political management, you know, to bring people of the same creed, by actually, and when you talk, people will tell you that it has happened so times, it has happened so. No, Nigeria needs a change, a brighter change, in the sense that a change in which each and every voice should be heard. Each and every people should be represented. And I always say this, you have more than 80 million Christians in Nigeria. So why should we develop a Muslim ticket, for example? What about the other people? So for you to argue that religion does not actually have a position or a place in Nigerian society, I think you are politically blind. Why? Because you need to look at and consider all the structures, all the people, all the belief system, because Nigerians are actually religiously conscientized. So therefore, you need, even if you are making a constitution, you need to look at the culture of the people. You look at the belief system of the people. So if you are into politics, you also look at how do you gain political support. Even though when making political permutations, political parties sometimes misfire and commit blunders. So we are not also, surprised, because sometimes nations and states, institutions and organizations might make a decision that will actually manifest sowing the seed for, you know, their own self-destruction. So I think it's not ideal. So what we need as a society is harmonious political journey. Harmonious political journey in the sense that each and every man, each and every region, each and every faith, each and every culture should be represented, because we are multicultural, we are multivociferous. So that is why our voices should be heard, our different regions and divides should be represented. That is why we are seeing people now leaving the political party as a result of what? We feel we are not represented. We feel we have been discarded. We feel we have been ignored. So this kind of political, lack of proper political management result in intra-party crisis, as well as political conflict and also cross-capital.
Exactly. I like these words, you know, harmonious political journey. where all stakeholders are taking into cognizance, before decisions are made. Now, let's return to Dr. Okonso. I know you want to respond to my initial, comment, on the issue of money and all of that. You could do that, but again, you add this to it. I'm sure you know and understand that primary election process is also a process towards recruiting leaders of the country who are going to be in government. There was this analogy, by IPAC chairman initially, when he said that the APC emerged from 3 or 4 political parties with different ideologies, different interests. In fact, Prof here described it as people with a variegated interests and what have you. And that has also rubbed off on the system that we have seen the past 7 years in terms of, governance, ministers, heads of parties and what have you, who may have come from those different parties under that APC umbrella, who may be actually, trying to also exhibit their own ideologies, not necessarily for the APC, but for that his original party from where he's coming from. So you can see that primaries also affect governance. It brings about, in some cases, incompetence and lack of compatibility. You are saying we should actually celebrate what we're seeing today. The IPAC chairman said, yes, we're okay, but we're not doing it in the right direction. What's your take?
Well, you permit me, Mr. Kirian. It's like our discussion is steeped in morality rather than politics. Because, as they say, politics is a very pragmatic thing. We cannot, we need to listen to our poets and philosophers talking about what the ideals should be. But when it comes to political contestation, really, just like Kingsley said when he was talking, we're talking about a lot of ruffle-ruffle. And ruffle-ruffle has never been harmonious anywhere, not even in history. We're talking about having processes that are guided by law, processes whose outcome will be legitimate, no matter the amount of the decibel of the noise making associated with it. And I still contend that Nigeria has improved. Our political parties too have improved because of that. And INEC has been asserting its independence very admirably as well as an umpire. So all these things are good. By that money, really, we cannot split hair so much about it. Any project at all takes money, whether political electioneering, or buying any kind of good or services or anything. You need money for it. And money is not evenly distributed in the population. That is true. And if money is not evenly distributed in the population and people are bidding for an office, the person that has more money will definitely throw in more money to gain an advantage. We don't have to cry over that. What is important is that whoever becomes our leader respects our constitution, respects the manifesto of his own political party, is committed to the welfare of the people, even as we have in the constitution, and so on and so forth. That is actually where we should wait. But to ask for the state operators to descend into the arena because some parties want to be helped, I don't think that will be democratic anymore. Because democracy is about competition. Bring your ideas, bring your resources, bring them to the arena, then who prevails? That is the question. So it's an open process, really. It's an open process. And the issue of whether INEC should conduct the primaries of political parties, I'm sure a lot of people will find that anathema. Because the INEC is supposed to be an umpire. Why will it now be involved in internal affairs of political parties? I don't think that is going to run well with any person. Political parties are supposed to organize, mobilize, generate resources because they have a goal in mind. The legitimate procurement of the instrument of power. And it's supposed to be a free feed. And people will bring in all the advantages into it as long as the law doesn't forbid it. So let's not cry about money at all. Those who don't have enough money should support those who have. And those who have enough money, they want to support those who have the capacity. They can also put the money behind them. So the issue we are discussing now seems to be veering towards the decadence of the elite and not the political processes themselves. The processes are supposed to be neutral because they are open to everybody. Whatever advantages you have, it's just like a boxing match when people are supposedly to be on a particular weight category. If one person punches the other and takes the bet away, are you supposed to be complaining that the referee is supposed to help the other fellow because he was going to be given a knockout? No, it will not be a competition anymore. You can't tie the hand of one boxer behind him because you want a plain boxing ring. No. Political parties should mobilize well. They should persuade people who are going to vote for them. However, they are going to do that, so long as they don't offend the law. And after they will have obtained power, for as long as they also use the power to serve the interests of the people, I believe that democracy will have been well established.
Dr. Okuzwa, well, our guests here are itching to respond. I hope we can do that very briefly before we take this short break. He used the analogy of a boxer. Say they're in the same weight category and one punches the other and takes the belt away. Are we supposed to be quarreling? And then, but it says that money speaks.
You see, one major issue is that we're not talking about political morality or immorality, and politics is not a bad game at all, but it depends on how you play it. Because you are asked to play a football game, but you are not being asked to rob any player, you know, on the field. And that is why there is a referee. Once you go against any player and he's going to blow a foul against you, and he punishes you either by yellow card or red card. So what we are saying is not an utter elimination of the use of money within a political process. But what we are saying here is that you shouldn't actually make use of money to bribe people, you know, to take away the right of a people. You call on a delegate and you ask him to swear by the Quran or by the Bible that before I give you this particular money, you have to swear that you're going to vote for me. So if we allow freely the use of money within the political primary environment, then it means that even a madman could actually purchase a political power. Why? Because what my colleague is talking about here is commoditization of political power, which means that you can purchase political power as a commodity once you have the money. No, that is what we do not want in our own society. What we want is the voting, to vote for responsible and responsive leaders. Those who can actually listen to the people and act, you know, in favor of the people. Not people who use resources, their own money, to buy power and they buy it for themselves, for their own interest, for their own cronies and cohort, not for the favor and interest of the electorate. That is the difference.
Prof, thank you very much for this explanation. We're going to get to more of that in the second stanza of our conversation. Let's start to break. But I think what Dr. Kunzwa is saying, you know, it remembers for me some of the definitions of political science, you know, or politics, you know, authoritative allocation of scarce resources, and of course, who gets what, when, and how. And that is why in Nigeria it's like a battle. It's like a war, because the resources are scarce, and who can manage it properly and ensure that the populace is well taken care of. That's part of the problem that we have as our own as a nation in our democratic practice. Now let's take a short break. When we come back, Good Morning Nigeria, we'll continue with our conversation.
Back at said Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Very interesting conversation we're having here with regard to internal party wranglings and the 2023 elections coming up in just about 6 months. Now, I think we should also, gentlemen, throw this in, that the internal party dissension and litigation arising therefrom, these are matters that were factored in the making of the Electoral Act 2022, which is why you have an elongated period between the conclusion of the party primaries and the conduct of the elections, so as to be able to accommodate litigation arising therefrom, and therefore not have a knock-on effect on the general elections, with the situation where somebody might get into office and the pre-election matters are still ongoing, and the person who is sworn in after a while, the person is asked to step down on account of a judicial decision. But our concern this morning just has to do with the character and the intensity of the quarrels amongst the political parties. I want to throw this in, IPAC chairman, that mainly when you listen to the comments of some of the party members, you almost ask yourself that in times past this would have been grounds for an accusation of anti-party activity. But there are party bigwigs who are making open comments about what went on and what is still going on and showing their dissatisfaction. Is this a new order in the political parties that, look, whether you accuse me of anti-party activity or not, I will tell you what it is, that are the parties cohesive? Are they being run properly?
No, they cannot be run properly because certain individuals in those parties you mentioned represent those parties. They personify what the party is really in terms of funding, And like I said earlier, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. That's why they can go to any length to run themselves down, because I'm paying. I'm the one paying for what is happening. I'm the one funding this particular party. So that's what is happening. That's why you hear, like you said, people that are supposed to show good example are now coming out and then use languages that you will never expect them to use, against each other. If truly and sincerely they belong to a political party that is worthy of a party, really, in the actual sense of the meaning of what political party is supposed to represent, because it's supposed to be the hope of democracy itself. The entire democracy is anchored on political parties, and that's why I was saying that, I will repeat myself again, government has to take a second look at areas because of our underlying conditions. It's not that you can't pretend to be America. You can't pretend to be the developed societies where people have the economic independence for them to take judgment that you expect them to make, as an individual. So government must recognize this and say, okay, what are the critical nodes, of this process that we need to intervene, And I think, and I still say that internal processes like primaries, is so crucial, because it's like the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. If you allow garbage to be pushed to Nigerians, that is what will emerge as government, in this country. It has happened. We should learn from the mistakes. We should make corrections.
Let me IPAC chair, with your kind leave. Let's throw this in, because Dr. Kunzuwa objected to or had a contrary view to what you are saying. If we are looking at primaries alone,
yes,
and political parties appear to have a challenge now in conducting free, fair, and credible primaries,
yes,
some persons will further argue that this is a function of the poor management of the political parties, and that the management of the political parties derives from the congresses of those political parties, where the party managers themselves are elected to say, go and govern your parties. Is INEC or is the government now also going to be conducting congresses to choose the managers of the parties?
No, you may not. You see, I like to liken it to a situation, where, because a country is not just about politics, isn't it? It's also about the economic system that you have in the country.
That's true.
And I say that putting them side by side, I think the political aspect is even more important for government to have more interest in, not just a party interest, not just aspiring to be who you are not, that, okay, let us be like America, where everything is left, on its own. It can be a laissez-faire situation. Where you have laissez-faire situation, the enabling environment, the enabling laws are put there. That's the point I'm making. And the government normally goes beyond the enabling laws to even intervene. Look at our foreign exchange, market. For instance, I'm just using an example that people can understand. Why is central bank throwing good money, to chase bad situation, which is our foreign exchange? Where are we? Billions of dollars is being used to sustain our currency. Why? Why don't you say let it, float, on its own? It's because it's inimical to the economy. In the arena, political arena, conducting primaries is very, very crucial. If you leave it to its own vagaries, with the capacities of the politicians, when you know that the politicians are not the kind of politicians you want that should be there in terms of their character, their being, the way they make their money, we know that this money 100% were stolen money. There's no doubt about that. So the issue I'm making is that, as IPAC chairman, I'm recommending to the government to take a second look. I'm not saying they should wholesale, fund political parties, but there are critical stages of the electoral process that must be funded by the government.
Okay.
You know, so that's the point I'm trying to make.
Okay. Thank you for that. And let me return to Dr. Okonso once more. And I'm going to also come from the point of view of what happens internally in parties with respect to leadership. When it comes to primaries, it is those who have the wherewithal in terms of the proper financial backing that can really run that. And let me say this here, by Kinsley, you know that the worst at what levels of any political party that is in power, that what members are given some money on monthly basis by the governors of those states to sustain the wards, to sustain members of that party in different wards of the state. They are giving money on monthly basis. Some are even giving some just like cars, motorcycles, and what have you. I don't understand that kind of practice. So I think the parties also have the problem of generating fund to run its affairs. But let's look at America, for instance, where we always copy. Over $950 million was raised during the 2008 election in the US. Obama alone raised about $347 million as against $143 million raised by the late John McCain. What am I trying to say? That we don't have a pattern where parties or a Bible candidate can raise fund, public raising of fund to enable him run an election. In our case, we rely either on government or the big wigs in political parties who will throw in their money, and of course they tell you what to do in the primaries. And at the end of the day, these primaries will of course produce either a president or a governor or anybody. But I want to come in here. How best can let's get to Kozo. I will come back to you. How best can political parties raise money, fund itself, so that you do not rely on the big wigs in the party who have all the money and to throw about during a primary election?
Yes. Ultimately, most organizations rely on the subscriptions of their members and donations. And political parties will not be an exception in Nigeria. However, you are going to weight both categories. Either you have assets you have acquired over time that revenue accrues from those assets, you receive donations, your members subscribe to whatever post we are going to have. Now, back to the chairman of Inter-Party Council. For me, ever suggesting that the government should interfere in running political parties is more autocratic than democratic. And please, I don't think we should go. We have seen quite a lot of that. Political parties have a check. Competition. If a political party bongos is selecting just somebody because he has money, that candidate is supposed to compete against a kind of another political party. And the voters have a choice in that regard. You can't talk about democracy without free reign of free choice. It's a kind of contradiction. So people should mobilize well. They should mobilize based on their vision of society. And because of the way we are now, our own stage of development, when you educate people more, they are likely to have better choices. As a matter of fact, we're talking about America. America, after choosing democracy as a form of government, also declared public education as public good. Because it was public education they felt was going to empower the citizen to make the right choices. It was not public education that's going to empower the citizen to choose who the rightful leader should be, who they should subscribe to. So we have many challenges here in Nigeria, yet even. Our minimum wage is 30,000. So you don't expect any person who is living on 30,000 naira today to have disposable income to donate to a political party. That sort of person will be prone to expecting something from a politician. So it's a fact of our national life today. I'm sure the statistics are not also very flashy when we talk about those of us who have been sent to school and those of us who have been left out. We will continuously address all these issues in parallel. But for the time being, we have to say this is the stage of our democracy. It may not be the ideal, but we have to climb our democratic ladder rung by rung. That is the point I've been making. And of course, our discussion should be pragmatic enough to recognize what our realities are. The person who brings a lot of money to a political party because he believes in that political party or because he anticipates a particular position already, he's going to assert himself. It's not charity. To donate to a political party is not charity. Just yesterday, those of us who are on this program actually to pay attention to what happened in America. A particular senator was criticized for being unduly beholden to corporate interest because of the way she voted, even while a member of the governing party. So we don't expect an ideal situation, but I believe the way we are now, our democracy is thriving. We have a lot of things to improve upon. We have a lot of interventions. ANEC is doing that already. Our laws are there. Electoral Act is there. The government should never intervene in the internal affairs of political parties. When we do that, we are guiding away from democracy into something else. I hope not autocracy.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kunzua. Back to Dr. Gali Sheriff. Closing thoughts, as it were. Let me ask this question. Against the backdrop of what we hear and what some insiders know. Usually, because our politics is a zero-sum game, the same way our primaries are a zero-sum game. So some persons would allege, for instance, that part of the noise that we are hearing arises from the fact that this has been a hefty loss to the losers. And the argument has also been made that pacification measures could actually compound allegations of corruption. Because sometimes it will very well be, okay, how much did you spend in the course of the primary? So we'll pay you off. The question that arises is, if you're going to, assuming that's on the cards, you're paying somebody off, where would those resources come from to pay off a loser in the primaries? Or if there are promises of, say, going forward once we win, then you have some blocks. Again, persons are raising questions whether that doesn't compound the issues around corruption. To make the process cleaner, it's an ideal situation to make it clean and cleaner, but we ought to be working toward the light.
You see, one major issue we must understand is that such intra-party crisis or conflict can be resolved, through this particular measure which you made mention, pacification, either by replication, of the resources spent by a candidate, or even an offer of a political appointment. For example, if I get to the office, I'm going to do this for you in order to compensate of your patience and consideration, for you to step down. So, three major things are involved. The first one is political cooperation and consensus building. Because cooperation, we need to cooperate together, bring our members together to bargain, discuss extensively on how to resolve our internal crisis. And that is why when Asiwaju Bola Tinubu was actually asked to intervene in the crisis within the party before even he contested for the presidential primaries or elections, I could remember that even though there was procrastination in Kano between Kwankwaso and Ganduje. So this kind of coming together, cooperate, it was rather too late as of that particular time, because the enmity as well as the crisis had actually gone far, deepened, extensively. That is why they were not able to resolve that particular crisis. So political cooperation, members of the political party come together and discuss extensively on the causes, the root causes of the crisis, and solve it. Then another issue is competition. So cooperation and competition are better than conflict itself. Competition in the sense that how do you compete? How do I compete in making the party as well as the state we govern better? If you go to other societies, you discover that one region and one region are in competition. They compete in order to see they bring development, to their own people. But the worst is degenerative inter-party conflict, which members of the political party try to eliminate each other, one another. This is the worst. So cooperation and competition are actually better than conflict and political rivalry and bellicosity.
Yeah, actually, I ask a question. Why is it that candidates are not able to raise funds? It's because there's a complete disconnect. And the electorates have come to realize that when candidates get to power, they don't remember them, and they even steal their money. Not only don't remember them, so they wouldn't like to donate to somebody who they know, who will remember them, and whatever is belongs to them, he will not bring it to them. Okay, so that's why it's difficult. And that's why we are saying that.
And the politician won't even have the conscience to ask them to give. Exactly. Where that's going to perform. You know, well, fine and good. We just hope that this will not generate to politics of personality destruction among members of political parties. And it's here that we conclude this conversation on Good Morning Nigeria. We'd like to appreciate all our viewers, all our guests rather, for being here this morning. First, Professor Gali Sharif Ibrahim, the head of Department Political Science and the International Relations, University of Abuja. Thank you for coming. Yabagi Yusuf Sani, National Chairman, Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC, and also the National Chairman of the Action Democratic Party, ADP. When the campaign begins, you can employ me, I consider and I who can assist you for some during the campaign. Thank you.
All right, but it's been here as chairman of IPAC, and we always appreciate his presence.
Exactly.
Okay. Very dispassionate.
Yes.
Although other guests oftentimes disagree with you.
Dr. Osaro Okunzwa, thank you so much indeed for being part of our show this morning. You are a well-known public affairs analyst. We appreciate your waking up with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you indeed. We hope to host you again some other time on this issue of money politics in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Now we appreciate our viewers wherever they are around the country and elsewhere around the world. Join us again tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning for a fresh package of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osawala saying have a nice day.
And I'm Kieran Umayo. Have a good day.